Hello, pilots. This is David coming to you again from Flying Development Studios. I am your Infinite Flight official test pilot, and I have a brief tutorial here to show you a little bit of the basics getting started with Infinite Flight Live. Now, as you can see, when you've updated, you got two tabs here, one for solo and one for live. In the top right, you'll see that you have your user information. When you touch that, it brings up this screen here. Hit the user account, and that's where you can change your display name and call sign just by touching your name or the call sign. It brings up a keyboard so you can change it to whatever you want. You could do that from solo or live mode. Doesn't matter. Of course, it'll only affect live mode. Now, when you get started, you only have a 50% standing. This is true for everybody. And this also means you can select any aircraft, but you can't necessarily fly it anywhere. We'll cover some of that in more detail later. But as you can see here, the airports that I'm selecting are fairly limited because of my standing being only 50%. So I can only select from one of these highlighted airports and use that particular airport. As long as I have an appropriately sized aircraft, it will allow me to. So as you can see, my first aircraft that I had started with is the Cirrus SR-22. Something else you'll notice is that you can select the time of day, but you cannot change the weather because the weather in live mode is reported live. The winds and everything come right across the internet, but we'll explain more of that a little bit later. For now, this is all you need to know just to get started here. Fast forward a little bit, and we'll see that now I've got my 100% standing. And don't worry, we'll cover that and explain how to get your standing up to 100% in another tutorial. This is just to get you familiar with the general screens and getting started on those screens for launching flights, how to meet up with friends on servers and things like that, covering those kinds of basics before you get up in the air. So, onward. You can see here that I am looking at the main screen where I have touched the live button. This is where I can then make my selections for the airports and the time of day. And aircraft, of course. Time of day can be whatever you want, but remember that it only affects you. Nobody else can see the time of day you selected. Everybody else online only sees whichever time of day they selected. So go to the live button and touch servers, and you'll see the various servers. As we go through this, there might be some experimentations with what the servers are called. Right now, you can ignore the advanced ones. Everything's going to have a open server for all standings. So look at the load and try and get one, hopefully, depending on if you're meeting friends, one with a relatively lower load, and then use that server. You can also check that server by hitting the Flights tab, and look for names, and maybe you'll find your friends there flying around, and you'll know exactly where to find them and meet up. Also, this is where you will find your logbook, your user account, as I showed you a moment ago, where you can change your call sign and display name. This also has your login type, so you know you're using your Google account or Facebook account. More may be added in the future. And it shows your standing and your subscription status. Now, since I now have a 100% standing, you can basically just see that I can select any aircraft I want, which you could do before at 50%. However, now the difference is, with that standing that I've improved by not racking up a bunch of violations and upsetting all the other pilots and causing terrible air disasters, I can go to any airport I wish to. So the standing is more of a reward system and to kind of protect the veteran pilots from rookie pilots who, all meaning well, of course, need to learn before they can just go get onto any airport in any plane. So there are weight restrictions at those airports, by the way. Some airports cannot take larger aircraft. For example, this one, KAST, I could not use an A380. So just make sure you have the right size aircraft. Next, we're going to take a look at some of the other important things you're going to need to know when you're going to fly live. For example, when we get started, whoops, hit the volume button. We're going to want to know where's the logbook. You got to hit the tool button on the top left there, and that'll take you to show you where your logbook is now. Either in solo or live. It's still there, I promise. Just kind of move things around a little bit. So, well, let's look at some of the settings. User account, logbook, I'm going to show you that first. Next, I'm going to show you the settings. After this, kind of swipe through. All right. The settings are important. The general settings are unchanged. We've seen those before. All these various things like control sensitivity, airport names, blah, blah, blah. The ones that we really want to pay attention to that are new now are the live and advanced. Live is going to affect how you see and hear other aircraft on the screen when you're playing. So you can mute the ATC text-to-speech if you don't like it. Advanced is important. This is the one you're going to want to go through. It will be different on each device. So you're going to want to go through these if you're having performance issues, and especially your aircraft count live, airplane count live. Turn that to low if you can. That one has the biggest impact on performance. And anti-aliasing, if you have it, you might want to turn that off if you have performance issues too. Just experiment with those. You don't have to set them all to low. Just slowly go through it until you make the right selection. But I was just telling you those first two, the anti-aliasing and the show live aircraft or airplane count, as being a couple that have big impact. The water high quality has a big impact too on some of the older devices like iPad 3, for example. So now we're going to go fly. I've got my beautiful Cessna Citation 10 going to the Caribbean. What a beautiful day. Remember, weather is live. It's not dynamic weather, meaning you're not going to see rain and snow, but it's live weather, so you can't change that. I'll touch on that a little more in a sec. First, I'm going to show you the HUD. The HUD is the same on the main HUD screen, but now the HUD is also available in the cockpit. You can remove this by touching and sliding up or down on the page button. So you can remove just the mini-map and keep the HUD, or you can remove both and just have the cockpit. I like both. I'm keeping them on. So now that we saw that, we got to start thinking about where we're going to take off from. This seems to be quite a hard part. How do you know where to take off from? Well, easy. Always take off and land into the wind whenever possible, not with it. So make sure you're facing the arrow. Look for green runways. See that one? That was green, so I know that's the runway to use now. Looking at the other end, the opposite end of that runway, it's red. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there in the middle of that hill. Anyway, think of it kind of like a stoplight. Green means go, orange means caution, red means stop. So if your only option is orange, it means that there's side winds, so you're going to have to approach with caution and be aware that those winds are there. Next, let's take a look at the map where I can show you the airspace and classes of the airports. We're at TNCM right now in the Caribbean, which is a Class Charlie airport, which means it has a 75% minimum standing requirement. How do I know that? I go to the map, touch TNCM. Bingo. Top left, there's my standing requirements, and then on the right is the airspace restrictions. The innermost ring, surface to 2600. Then the next ring, restriction 2500 to 4100. Which means if I don't have the appropriate standing of 75% or higher, I cannot fly through those airspaces in those increments. Make sense? A Class Bravo airport is going to have another ring, which means that it has even more airspace restricted at a higher altitude as you're further away from the airport. I'll show you that at TFFR in a second. So, just going to kind of touch some of these. See, the weather might not always be there for all airports, but it will always be reported live to any airport that does use the METAR live weather feature. The white lines, in case you didn't know, those are airways. The triangles are waypoints. You use those for your flight planning. That's a whole other tutorial. So here we go. TFFR, Class Bravo. Come on. There we go. As you see, it has a higher requirement, which means to approach it from a greater distance. If I don't have an 85%, I got to stay out of the airspace between 4,000 and 8,000. I got to be above or below that. So pay attention to that, and you won't have violations. You'll be just fine. Next, ATC. Just a quick rundown here on what it is. It's Unicom. Google Unicom, ATC Unicom. Google that to get a really in-depth information. There's a great wiki article, Wikipedia. It's very easy. You just touch it. You select what you want to do. We know we want a taxi, so I selected Taxi 2.
Unicom, Delta 1 Zulu Yankee, taxi into runway 10.
Easy. You're going to use it the same way for every other type of thing you want to do. Use it as much as you can, and make sure that you are paying attention to what other people are saying too, especially if you have the text-to-speech turned off. Make sure you read that. So you can make any selection, lots of selections, I mean, not any. I could choose to depart straight out. I can choose to depart in a straight direction.
1 Zulu Yankee is clear of all runways.
So I just wanted you to hear another one there. Totally irrelevant to my actual position right now, but say I just landed and got off the runway, I'm going to tell everybody that last one there, which is clear of all runway. And you can also tell everyone if you're going to cross a runway, select a specific runway, hold short at a runway, and all that. So remember, avoid violations, don't do acrobatic maneuvers around an airport, taxi slow, under 35 knots ground speed, use your ATC, pay attention to others, don't plow through them. You'll have a great time. Bye!